A man is making a last-ditch effort to recover over $280 million in Bitcoin that he accidentally threw out way back in 2013. What's going on, guys? You guys have tuned into Rules for Rebels. In today's video, we're going to be covering a CNBC article and a story about a British man who way back in 2013 threw out a hard drive, I should say, containing 7,500 Bitcoins, which today are valued over $280 million. I actually got this story from my buddy, Jay Capola. Jay Capola just sent me the story the other day. And if you guys find like interesting stories that you either want me to cover and turn into a video, or that you think would be interesting for us to discover to discuss as a community, go ahead and shoot me an email at rulesforrebels@gmail.com. Again, that's rulesforrebels, just like the channel, at gmail.com. And send me some interesting stories. I'd be happy to make a video and kind of get a discussion started with our little community here. Seemed like a lot of you guys liked the video from the other day. I made a video the other day about a man who had lost, I believe it was a similar amount of Bitcoin, probably around 7,500, I think it was. And he had actually put his Bitcoin, or put his seed, I should say, on, I think it was called an iron keeper or something like that. Basically, it's an encrypted stick, basically. It's encrypted memory drive that it allows you 10 attempts to open it up, and if you fail to open it up after 10 attempts, it forever locks itself. Now, here's what I think is interesting about that, right? I'm all for security. I'm all for encryption and having a Trezor or a Ledger or some type of hardware wallet. But here's what I don't get about the way that his device works. You know, if I'm going to get hacked, if somebody's going to steal my Bitcoin, who really gives a shit what happens to it? I mean, if it's not in my possession, I mean, sure, I'd prefer that a hacker didn't have financial gains from fucking me over and taking advantage of me. But at the end of the day, if I don't have the Bitcoins, I don't have the Bitcoin. So I think it's kind of interesting that this guy used a device designed to lock itself up after 10 failed attempts. And here he is, you know, years later, he still has the device in his possession, and he has got 2 attempts left. If he puts in the wrong password 2 more times, it's going to lock up itself. I think you're much more likely at risk to lock yourself out of a device like that, as wound up happening to this previous gentleman, as you are to have a hacker steal it, hack the thing, and then get the coin. So I personally would probably never get a device that locks itself like that. I think the likelihood of me locking myself out of it is probably greater than somebody getting a hold of it. But anyhow, it seemed like you guys enjoyed that video. I will link to that video down in the description box below if you haven't checked that one out yet. If this article from today about the guy trying to recover 7,500 Bitcoins out of a garbage dump in his community that he threw out, 8 years ago, if this story sounds familiar to you, it probably is. If you were involved in Bitcoin back in 2015, 2016, 2017, back when Bitcoin was rising in price, you know, the media loves to cover Bitcoin stories when the price is surging. You know, Bitcoin recently blew past $40,000, blew past the all-time high of $19,000, and the media loves covering these Bitcoin stories. When Bitcoin starts crashing, you know, the media will do a couple stories about how Bitcoin crashed, this was a bubble, this was a scam, and then they'll forget about it again until Bitcoin surges again. But if this story sounds familiar to you from maybe during the last bull run, I actually started making a video about the wrong story. Here's an article from 2017, December 20th of 2017, which, if I recall, was probably at like the fever pitch, probably close to around the time Bitcoin hit 19,000. And this same story was featured. However, back then, same guy, James Howell, an IT worker, 7,500 Bitcoins. But last time around, it was 127 million. This time around, it's 280 million. And I'll link to both these articles down in the description box below if you'd like to check them out or give them a read. I got this article. I've made this video 2 or 3 times already, and I keep screwing up. So if I already said this, I apologize. But I got this story from my buddy Jay Capola. Jay Capola is a buddy of mine and a guy who watches the channel regularly. And he sometimes hits me with some interesting stories and things like that. So if you guys find an interesting story that you either want me to make a video about or that you think would be interesting for us to, as a community, discuss, go ahead and shoot me an email, rulesforrebels@gmail.com. Again, same name as this channel, rulesforrebels@gmail.com. And I'd be happy to cover whatever stories you guys want to send over. And also, as kind of a complete side note before we get into this, Let me know if you guys would have any interest in kind of having like a podcast. Me and my buddy Jay Coppola, who's on this channel, some of you guys may have interacted with him in the comments before. We chat every now and again. Great guy to talk to, has a lot of interesting information, has had a lot of interesting business experiences. I know right now he's a business broker. So if you're looking to buy or sell a business, reach out to him or hit me up and I'll get in touch with him for you. But me and him have had some awesome discussions on the phone. And, we'll start talking, and next thing you know, we're shooting the shit about business and current events, and next thing you know, like 2-3 hours have passed. And so we'd always been saying, like, man, we should record these conversations and turn it into a podcast, or we should start a podcast. And we had talked about it a couple years ago, probably my fault more than his. We never actually wound up getting everything set up. I can sometimes be bad with follow through. But if you guys would have any interest in a podcast with me and my man James Coppola, or Jay Coppola, drop a comment, let me know, and maybe we'll try to get that going if he is still interested in doing so. Anyhow, today's story comes to us from CNBC, which is also who ran this story about 3 years ago. Man makes last-ditch effort to recover $280 million in Bitcoin he accidentally threw out. If you're not familiar with the story already, this guy used to mine Bitcoin. After a couple years, he sold one of his laptops on eBay. He took the hard drive off, and he took the hard drive out, and he set the hard drive to the side, figuring if these crazy Bitcoins are ever worth anything or ever used for anything more than buying weed online and playing video games, I'll have this hard drive set to the side. Well, apparently a couple years later, in 2013, when he was cleaning out his house, he accidentally threw out the hard drive. Apparently, when the price started surging back in probably 2016, 2017, that's when he kind of remembered it or had a renewed interest in finding it. And I believe back then he was trying to get his local community to let him search the garbage dump. And back then it'd been, 2017 back to 2013, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. It'd probably been 3 or 4 years at that time. At the time, they wouldn't let him search the garbage dump. I think they said it violates the laws, and also it would cause a lot of, would cause a lot of environmental problems. And so here we are 8 years later, right? Like 13, actually eight, maybe even 9 years later. And he's once again making a last-ditch effort to petition, I guess I'm not sure what they have in the UK, if it's cities or communities or municipalities, whatever it is. He's petitioning his community and the garbage dump to let him go search for the Bitcoins. I think it's, think about that. You're looking for a hard drive in a huge garbage dump. Talk about finding a needle in a haystack. And on top of it, you have 8 years of garbage piled on top of it, decaying food, garbage juice leaking into it. I guess even though the hard drive is probably broken and damaged at this point, he's still confident that tech experts could recover the information off the Bitcoin he would need to recover off the hardware wallet to recover this Bitcoin. So let's jump into this. Some bullet points from the article. James Howells, 35, said he mistakenly put a hard drive with 7,500 Bitcoins in the trash while clearing out his home in 2013. At today's prices, that haul would be worth more than $280 million. He needs permission from his local council to search a garbage dump he believes contains the lost hardware. The Newport City Council has rejected his request to look through the landfill, citing environmental and funding concerns. So this article is from, again, CNBC out of London. A British man who accidentally threw out a hard drive with a trove of Bitcoin on it is once again urging local city officials to let him search for it in a landfill site. James Howell, a 35-year-old IT engineer from Newport, Wales, said he discarded the device while cleaning out his home in 2013. He claims he had 2 identical laptop hard drives and that he mistakenly put the one containing the cryptographic private key needed to access and spend his Bitcoins in the trash. After all these years, Howells is still confident he'd be able to recover the Bitcoin. Though the external part of the hard drive may be damaged and rusted, he believes the platter inside may still be intact. There's a good chance that the platter inside the device is still intact, he told the CNBC. Data recovery experts could then rebuild the hard drive or read the data directly from the platter. Howells said he had 7,500 Bitcoins, which at today's prices would be worth more than $280 million. He says the only way to regain access would be through the hard drive, which he threw in the trash 8 years ago. But he needs permission from the local council to search the garbage dump he believes contains the lost hardware. The landfill is not open to the public, and trespassing would be considered a criminal offense. Howells has offered to donate 25% of the haul, worth around $70.8 million to a COVID relief fund for his home city if he manages to dig up the hard drive. He has also promised to fund the excavation project with the backing of an unnamed hedge fund. So apparently he's probably also going to give some of these riches to a hedge fund for supporting this or funding this. But the Newport City Council has so far rejected his request to look through the landfill, citing environmental and funding concerns. And it doesn't seem like local officials are about to budge anytime soon. As far as I'm aware, they have already rejected the offer, Hall said, without even having heard our plan of action or without being given a chance to present our mitigations to their concerns regarding the environment. It's just straight up a no every time. A spokesman for the council told CNBC it had been contacted a number of times since 2013 about the possibility of retrieving the piece of IT hardware to contain that contained the bitcoins, the first time being several months after Howells first realized the drive had gone missing. And if there was any chance of finding it, that probably would have been the time. It's probably going to be a lot harder with 8 years of garbage piled up on top. It's not hard to imagine why Howells would want to salvage the equipment. Bitcoin prices have skyrocketed in the past few months, hitting an all-time high near 42,000 last week before pulling back sharply. The New York Times reported Tuesday that a programmer in San Francisco has been locked out of 7,002 Bitcoins, worth about $267.8 million today, because he forgot the password needed to unlock a small hard drive containing a private key to a digital wallet. That's a story that we covered the other day, which again, I'll link to that one down below as well. Bitcoin's network is decentralized, meaning that it isn't controlled by a single individual, but a network of computers. Each transaction originates from a wallet which has a private key. This is a digital signature and provides mathematical proof that the transaction has come from the owner of the wallet. So it looks like that's the end of that story, but I thought this was an interesting one just because you guys had enjoyed the story we did the other day. And also, like I said, a lot of you guys who've been into crypto for a while have probably heard this story or might remember this story from back in 2016 or 2017. Let me know your guys' thoughts. I know a lot of you guys shared stories the other day, but if you have a funny story or a sad story about locking yourself out of your Bitcoin wallets or losing Bitcoin, share your story with us as well. If you enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up. If you're not subscribed to the channel, hit that subscribe button below. Thanks for watching, guys, and I'll check you on the next video.